So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions signed Cam Sutton out of free agency this past offseason to come in and be the Detroit Lions' #1 cornerback. He was brought in to take away #1 wide receivers, be the #1 cornerback on the roster, and lead this secondary to the playoffs, to a division title, and hopefully a deep postseason run. Now, there was a lot of excitement when Cam Sutton was signed, and there was also a lot of question marks. A player coming from a Pittsburgh Steelers defense where he played primarily in the slot and looked really, really good, but didn't necessarily have the boundary reps that you would want to see out of a #1 cornerback. There was a lot of excitement, but a lot of hesitation for Cam Sutton coming in. And as of right now, a month into his new contract, Cam Sutton seems to be worth every single penny. He has been a lockdown cornerback for the first month of the NFL season, playing it quite possibly an all-pro level for the Detroit Lions right now, and he has quietly been the most underrated cornerback in the NFL and potentially the most underrated player in the NFL. So today I want to take a look at Cam Sutton, just give him his credit, show what he's been able to do for the Detroit Lions, show how effective he's been for the Detroit Lions and how good of a splash signing he was in the 2023 offseason. So let's start off with the reason he was signed. Going back to 2022, Cam Sutton was a very good cornerback, allowing just 35 completions on 73 targets, a 47.9 completion percentage, while allowing just 388 yards through the air, 4 passing touchdowns, which isn't great, but did have 3 takeaways to make up for it. Cam Sutton was looked at as one of the more underrated slot guys in the NFL, a player that was finally able to break out and really was a strong member of that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He wasn't primarily a boundary cornerback, doing a lot of his work in the slot and all of his interceptions coming from the slot, but did have some reps on the boundary, showing that he was able to do it. But as I said, there was a little bit of a question mark. Was his production going to translate to another team? Was his production going to translate to the boundary? I think that it 100% has. Now, after his 2022 campaign, Cam Sutton became a free agent, was not re-signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and signed a 3-year, $33 million contract with the Detroit Lions, with 22.5 of that being fully guaranteed the moment the pen hit the paper. And ever since, Cam Sutton has been a lockdown cornerback. This season for the Detroit Lions, Cam Sutton has allowed just 9 completions on 18 targets for 50% completion percentage against him, allowing just 113 yards in coverage throughout 4 games, allowing 0 touchdowns on the boundary and 0 interceptions to go along with it. Cam Sutton has been less of a turnover machine. He's been less of a playmaker and more of just a simply lockdown cornerback. He's a player that you're not going to hear on the broadcast very often. He's a player that over the last 2 games has really not been mentioned once, and a lot of people forget that he's even out there. There are people upset that Cam Sutton, despite making so much money, isn't being talked about by the broadcast team, and fail to realize that is the sign of an elite lockdown cornerback, a guy that allows 113 yards in 4 games, averaging about 28 receiving yards allowed a game, and that 50% completion percentage is inflated by a really poor game by Cam Sutton with the quotations around it, because he allowed 5 receptions on 7 targets against the Seattle Seahawks for 31 yards and 0 touchdowns. Other than that, in his first game versus Kansas City, he allowed 2 receptions on 5 targets for just over 30 yards. And then going against the Atlanta Falcons, he again allowed just 2 receptions on 5 targets for less than 21 yards. And then his best game of the season came in week 4 in Green Bay in prime time on Thursday Night Football, where he allowed 0 completions on 1 target versus Jordan Love, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and a Packers offense that was able to get a couple explosive plays. Cam Sutton denied all of it. 1 target on the entire game, 0 completions, of course, 0 yards allowed. He has become a truly lockdown cornerback, and other than that one game versus Seattle, he has allowed no more than 2 completions in a game, and that completion percentage would be significantly down from where it was at this current time. And 50% is still among the elite ranges of NFL cornerbacks. To compare Cam Sutton to some of the other cornerbacks this season, Cam Sutton has a better completion percentage against than Sauce Gardner, the former All-Pro, Tyreek Woolen, the 3rd place runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year last season, a player that is looked at as one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFL, former All-Pro Jair Alexander, former All-Pro Darius Slay, first-round picks Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes, as well as 5th overall pick Devon Witherspoon, All-Pros Patrick Surtain, former Pro Bowler Marshawn Lattimore, as well as former Pro Bowler A.J. Terrell, guys that are looked at as the premier top-end cornerbacks in this league. Sauce Gardner is talked about in the top 5. Jair Alexander is talked about in the top 5. Darius Slay and Pat Surtain are talked about as top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL. And, of course, Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes, and Devon Witherspoon are all players that were selected top 15 in the 2023 NFL Draft. Players that are supposed to be top-end premier talents entering this league, and Cam Sutton is on top of all of them. Now, completion percentages and everything, right? Some players give up some completions under the middle, but give up very few yards and very few touchdowns. So let's take a look at the yards allowed. Cam Sutton, on top of allowing a better completion percentage than all of these players, is also allowing less yards than first-round picks Devon Witherspoon, Emmanuel Forbes, and Christian Gonzalez, while allowing less yards through the air than All-Pro Darius Slay, All-Pro Cam Sutton, All-Pro Patrick Surtain, All-Pro Sauce Gardner, former Pro Bowler Marshawn Lattimore, and former Pro Bowler A.J. Terrell. He is having an absolutely elite season, and I could make the argument that he is right now the best cornerback in the NFL. He is on pace to allow less than 500 yards as a boundary cornerback, going up against wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s. He's a guy that is consistently taking away wide receiver 1s. He did it against Christian Watson. He did it against Drake London. He did it against Kansas City as number 1 option. He did it against Seattle for the most part. He really didn't get beat by Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf at all. And he's playing the best football of his career. I would argue he is a top 3 player on the Detroit Lions defense. And at this point in the season, you could make the argument that he's a top 5 player on the Detroit Lions right now, a team that is 3-1 and currently in firm control of their division. Cam Sutton has been worth every single penny this offseason. Cam Sutton is a player that continues to be locked down, continues to take away number 1 options, and continues to be one of, if not the very best cornerbacks in the NFL. You see him among some of the elite names right now, and he's not being talked about because he's not getting turnovers. He's not getting picks. He's not getting the spotlight that all these other cornerbacks are, right? He's not getting the spotlight that Darius Slay gets. He's not getting the spotlight that Sauce Gardner gets for being the 4th overall pick. Cam Sutton was a late round pick. Cam Sutton is a player that has never really been in the spotlight of the NFL and has always been a super underrated player in the NFL. But as of right now, and really going back to last season, he is an elite, versatile defender that pretty much does everything for the Detroit Lions defense. If they need him in the slot, he'll move to the slot. If they need him on the boundary like they have for the first month, he'll be a lead on the boundary. He takes away number 1 wide receivers. He's playing at an all-pro level, and he needs to start getting his respect. So, with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Just a quick little update, a player spotlight on a player that isn't getting very much hype, a player that is actually, even by some, being called a bad signing because he's not being talked about very much by the broadcast teams, a player that is flying under the radar and has done so for the entirety of his NFL career, finally deserves a little bit of recognition. Cam Sutton, number 1 on the Detroit Lions, the number 1 cornerback, and arguably the best cornerback in the NFL through a month of play. So with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Just wanted to bring some spotlight to the Detroit Lions superstar cornerback. And with that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.